Hello everyone, welcome back to the 11th episode of the Down to the Wire podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you're not subscribed, perhaps you could hit the subscribe button below if you're a regular listener. Thank you for all of those who listen regularly on either YouTube or on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you give us a follow. Jack, how are you doing?
I tell you what, I am good because the Chiefs have won and United didn't lose to Liverpool.
Yeah, a little bit of mixed emotions I feel today, to be honest, as a Liverpool fan and a Chiefs fan. We'll get into that a bit more later.
I tell you what, the bulk of my emotion. The bulk of my emotion that I'm feeling today stems from whether Patrick Mahomes has got a concussion or not.
Yes,
So I wouldn't say I'm in a particularly great mood or a foul mood. I'm just
tentative.
Limbo.
Yeah, yes. We're just kind of a little bit on edge. So obviously we'll be discussing some of the, some of the big fixture of the weekend. Liverpool United, one of the big games in, I was about to say English football, but world football really. It's probably one of the biggest rivalries. We will also be discussing the career of Mr. Wayne Rooney. Announced that he's retiring this week to become the full-time Derby County manager. To be honest, Jack, I'll be interested to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, as a non-United fan, my views will be different from yours, perhaps. Perhaps you'll feel a bit more strongly about some things than I would. And we'll also be dissecting, some of the other little tidbits from what's been going on in the Premier League this week. Perhaps some of the more topical issues, and then we will be moving on to the NFL as we. I'm just trying to think what round it was this week. It was the Divisional this week, wasn't it? So we're into the Championship games next week. And they are looking pretty tasty, to be honest. So we shall go from there. Should we crack on?
Let's do it.
Right, let's start with United-Liverpool. For those of you who don't know, it finished 0-0. It was a bit of a nervy game, I would say. It was more one of those ones where you could almost tell that both teams just didn't want to lose, which I know sounds a little bit dopey, but
to be fair, when people say both teams didn't want to lose, that is true. But it wasn't one of those games where people don't want to lose and then they decide not to attack. There was a lot of attacking. To be fair, most of the attacking was done by Liverpool, and to be fair, Maguire and Lindelof. Lindelof towards the end made some exceptional challenges and blocks. But it was more of a case of that United defence wasn't going to break down. I think Luke Shaw had the game of his life against.
Yeah, I know. I don't know where that came from. Like someone said that they joked saying that United signed Alex Telles, and now this is Luke Shaw, and it's like a picture of Roberto Carlos. like just out of nowhere, just started playing quite well.
And apparently he's been pretty good for United all season. Truth be told, I haven't watched much of the football this season, or as much as I'd like to. But apparently Luke Shaw has been one of Man United's standout players, and I think reputation precedes him in a sense. He always was good at Southampton, but in United colours he's never quite got running, and whenever he's always had a really brutal injury at some really unfortunate moments. So it's nice to see him sort of come into fruition for United this season.
Yeah, as a Liverpool fan, it's a bit of a weird one really, because I think there was a part of me that was thinking before the game we could do with the win just to change the mood. As in Liverpool now have, that's their fourth game in a row without a win, which is, that's not great form really.
No, they haven't done that since. Oh, I did have the stat earlier. I think it was since 2017 they haven't done that, and that's when they lost 5 times in a row.
Yeah, it's
well, not lost, but didn't win. Sorry.
Yes, didn't win. Yeah, that's fine. But I think given how both teams have been playing recently, I think I would take a draw in all honesty.
I'll be honest.
Go on.
Even though United were the team that was drastically the worst performer of the two in the game, I think both teams came away with a little bit of a sense of disappointment that they didn't win the game, but particularly because United had the 2 best opportunities of the game, and Alisson just decided, today's the day I'm going to be like a brick wall. I'm going to make some sort of Spartan defence. It's like, scoring.
It was complete contrast, wasn't it? Because you had, I think if Liverpool have a fully fit team, I think Liverpool, and they're playing well. I think Liverpool win that game. But the way things are at the moment, Liverpool haven't got a fully fit team, and they've certainly not been playing particularly well. Whereas United, on the other hand, have been banging form.
Yeah, that is true.
So, sorry, go on, what were you going to say?
And it suits their game plan. They've sort of done this for a few games where they love to play on the counter. They haven't been able to do it as much this year because teams are giving them a bit more respect than they have done previously. Like, obviously, when United were in their dog days, were like, really, well, not too long ago, but where teams would go to Old Trafford with a bit of confidence going into a game United. I think it's because of United's good form, teams are starting to give them a bit more respect in the sense that they sit off a lot more. But I mean, especially when you play one of the big teams. I mean, I get the vibe that Solskjaer goes into these games now saying, "I'm not going to lose it." Because
a bit of a Mourinho-esque style, isn't it? Is it not a case of right, we have to win this game. It's just a case of look, just don't lose.
Yeah, because we played Spurs. We played Spurs early, lost to them 6-1. Since then. Every game we've played against the other classic top six has been either a 0-0 or, apart from the 1-0 loss to Arsenal, every other game has been a 0-0. So United haven't scored a single goal against any of the other top six teams since the 6-1 loss to Spurs. And I think Solskjaer's coming away saying, okay, we only pick up a point, but they also only pick up a point. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, you come out of those only with 4 points, but... I think you've gained 4. You've taken some points away from them.
Yeah, I mean, I think in all honesty, it was more important for Liverpool to win that game than it was for United, which obviously they didn't. I think, I don't know, and I said this to you previously. I think the league is a bit of a different animal this year, just in general. As in, last year, if it had been that result, and United stay 3 points clear of Liverpool. You kind of sat there and you're like, oh, well, that could be the league. Whereas the way the league's gone this year, I would back United to drop points between now and the end of the season, but I would also drop Liverpool to drop points between now and the end of the season, just because of the way the league has been. It's been that kind of topsy-turvy vibe to it,
apart from the last 2 years, I don't think there's ever been a Premier League season where... You look at teams and you go, they're not going to drop any more points again.
Yeah,
when Liverpool went on that charge, it was like no one thought they were going to drop a point. Even when they lost 1 or 2, everyone was like, well, they'll just win the rest of them. Everyone literally was looking to the end game and going, there's this many games left, there's so many points Liverpool or Man City even the year before we're going to pick up. Now, a lot more anyone can beat anyone. I feel I feel like the top, Liverpool and City have come not down to earth, but they've come almost within touch and distance. The people who actually
we'll
grasp
discuss that.
Them.
Yeah, we'll discuss that later because I think that's an interesting discussion. But like you said, I think Liverpool dominated the first part of the game, but then United had the best chances of the game, no doubt. Alisson, do you know what? It's interesting because I think Alisson did for Liverpool yesterday what De Gea has done for United for a long time, where like I can think of numerous occasions where Liverpool, perhaps get a cracking chance 1-on-1, and then De Gea just makes an absolutely worldy save. And it's not necessarily, that Liverpool are dominating all of the game and then De Gea is keeping the minute, but it's one of those ones where it's like it's one big moment, and that can swing the tie. And I think Alisson did that for Liverpool yesterday. He just kept us in the game.
Well, those saves saved you 4 points difference between us. You know what I mean? It could be even worse. Than it is.
And I think and I said this to you yesterday. Well, not yesterday. Sorry. Oh yeah, it was yesterday. Liverpool, feels like ages ago. It was only yesterday perhaps it's because it was so stressful. That result for me only really suits Man City, to be honest. I think just because
I'll be honest, I'll take it. But as a United fan, Man City are going to be the ones looking the best out of this. So
I think. I guess the thing I would think is like for you as a United fan, you're kind of looking at it and going, yeah, all right, we'll take it with 3 points clear. As a Liverpool fan, I'm kind of like, we'll take it just because we've not been playing well, so a draw is better than a loss. And then I guess as a City fan, you're just like, well, they're taking points off each other. That's a win-win, really.
And to be fair, I still don't even think Man United are genuinely going to be a title contender. I mean, Roy Keane was very, very hesitant to even put United in discussion to it in the commentary. It's very much the vibe of Man United are at the top at the moment, but they're not the best team, and I don't think they will. They don't think anyone thinks they will be. No. But that's why I'm kind of like, well, we got a point off Liverpool. At the end of the day, I'm looking for top 4 football. I don't want them to go for a title charge this year, be disappointed, and then blow it all next year with unreal aspirations, then end up outside the top 4 because they just collapse. I'd rather them go, hey, look at us. We're overachieving. Our aim was top 4. Now we are in the conversation. And outside, very much like the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody genuinely thinks they're going to win it. Well, maybe some people will do, but they're in the conversation at least, and that's what I like at the moment about United.
I mean, it's one of those. I think it's like I said, it's one of those seasons where it's just so difficult to call, and it's interesting actually because I'm pretty sure Jurgen Klopp said that Liverpool's objective this season was top 4, not the title, which I do think is a little bit of mind games, because I think if he comes out now and says, the title is the objective, that puts a huge amount of pressure on the players.
I don't think anybody really is going to listen to Jurgen Klopp saying we're only aiming for top 4. No. I mean, you just won the Premier League title in quite sensational circumstances, and it's like absolutely nobody thinks there's 4 teams that are going to finish above you.
No. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I guess it's just very topsy turvy. Right. So I guess those are our thoughts on the games. Perhaps we'll get into some of the more nitty gritty kind of topics of the game. So I guess the first one I'm going to raise, which I don't necessarily agree with. I'm just putting it out there because that's what a lot of people seem to be complaining about. So just before half time, 45 minutes and 54 seconds. There was 1 minute of time added on to the standard 45. I believe it was Thiago played the ball in behind. Mane got in behind, and I say got in behind between the ref blowing his whistle and the ball kind of being at Mane's feet. The ref blew the whistle. There seems to be a little bit of debate. Some people are saying, it's only 5 seconds. Some people are saying, it's too close to call. What are your thoughts on that? Firstly, I mean, what do you think?
If I'm honest, I didn't realise it was before the 1 minute mark, the 46 minute mark rather. I didn't realise that, but I think it's a load of rubbish if I'm honest. Only the sense of the referee blew that whistle the moment Thiago booted that up in the air. He probably, with the anticipation of if it was only 5 seconds left or whatever. I mean, you never know because he has his own watch, doesn't he, which has the clock on it. So he is actually... He may have even gone, it's only 50 seconds. But I don't know what his dealio was there. But he blew that whistle the moment it left Thiago's foot, pretty much.
I mean, I've seen...
And as he did, once the referee blew, I think United players very basically just went, okay. And as the ball came down, I think Mane was like, I'm through. And it wasn't a realistic, he's through. I'm sure the United players would have been... Well, I'm not going to say they were going to win the ball.
It's a what if, isn't it? As in you can't know for certain.
Mane's just gone on and he's gone, but I would have been through almost to get a bit of favour later on or something. I don't know.
I mean, I've seen a lot of different discussion on it. I think it might have been Mark Clattenburg saying, that referees try and aim for the ball to be in a neutral zone, which I guess is why the ref blew up as Thiago hit it in the air, because he was kind of around the edge of the D on Liverpool side, wasn't he? And obviously then by the time you kick it in the air, you're kind of around halfway. I saw another referee saying that the ref got it wrong because the regulations say with the added time you have to play the minimum amount. You can always add more on, but you should never cut any off.
I get what you mean. The thing is,
which is a technicality.
What if he boots it and then it's like, okay, he's there, maybe Mane wins the ball, but there's still 2 United players to beat. And it's like, well, okay, it's no longer in a neutral area because it's sort of in United's third, even though, because to be fair, they were miles out of the box when that happened. It wasn't like they were on the edge of the box or anything. They were still pretty much only just into the United's half. But it's like, then it's like the play may go on for another 20 to 30 seconds, and it's like, well, I understand you've got to play the minimum of a minute, but if you're playing up to a minute 30 just because it's not in that neutral zone, and it's like almost like playing it around the box, trying to find a way, and it's like, where do you draw the line? So I don't really blame the ref for just calling it when it was, because it was like, well, it's neutral zone. I don't think anyone really anticipated anything to be happening in that situation.
I mean, this is the thing, is in... I think the problem that football has is like for, as in, let's be real, there are probably lots of other occasions where you can go on the technicalities of, oh, well, it's a second under, they shouldn't blow up. And, you see it in in other competitions, like it'll get to like 90 plus 2 and the ref will blow up to say 91-56, for example, and the ref blows up and you never see people kind of kicking off with, oh, we should have had an extra 4 seconds or whatever. But I'm wondering perhaps if the whole kind of, VAR, and bear with me on this, the kind of pernicketiness, I think that's a terrible way of putting it, but you know what I mean. The kind of accuracy that VAR is going for, as in like we're talking about margins of millimetres or like an armpit hair or offside, or the ball being over the line by 0.5 millimetres. I wonder perhaps if that's kind of amplified these sorts of decisions a little bit, perhaps. I guess maybe whereas in the past people would have perhaps just gone, oh, well, it's only 5 seconds, that's football, that's what happens sometimes. Now people are kind of picking up on it a bit more. What do you think about that? Or do you think that's just a little bit?
But I feel like that sort of VAR stigma lends itself to decisions that VAR can correct. I mean, if they start to bring in VAR for, right, we've got to cut it off on the 1 minute mark, what I mean?
No.
You'll be having balls going almost into that. It's like, well, VAR's true to the tone.
No, I'm not saying that they should bring VAR in for decisions like that. I just guess what I'm saying is that because of the way that VAR is now kind of saying, like definitively that is an offside, that is not offside based on like millimetres.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's amplified these kind of minor details, these kind of technicalities, I guess, a little bit more. But in all honesty, I think it's just one of those things that happens in football. I'm sure you could find countless... and like you said, it's one of those what-ifs, as in, the way it looked on TV, you're kind of like, oh, well, Mane's in there. But like you said, the rule is play the whistle. As soon as you hear the whistle,
stopped.
People stop playing. So, it'll be one of those we'll never know, I guess. Cool. I guess the next one is another Liverpool-orientated one, and then perhaps we'll move on to some of the United-orientated stuff. So Liverpool played Fabinho and Henderson, centre-half, which was... and I think, given the circumstances, I think they did all right. At the end of the day, they are... I guess I know Fabinho's a defensive midfielder, but as in Henderson's not a defensive midfielder, he's just a centre-mid. And it can't be easy, kind of adapting and changing around and all that kind of thing, sorry, go on.
To be honest, I understand that they're not defenders as a first choice position, but these players are professionals. They are the cream of the crop of footballing ability. I don't think that them playing that, out of position, obviously it's not ideal for them, but I don't think it's as huge or enormous of an issue as it's always being made out to be. I know they struggled the other day when, I think it wasn't against Villa when they struggled, was it? Southampton. They struggled in that one a touch. To be honest, I didn't watch the game, but that's just what I heard. But, you know what I mean?
Was it Southampton?
Yeah, it was Southampton, yeah, you're right when you said
was
that.
It? Okay.
They lost, yeah.
But I'm sure Reece Williams played in that game. No, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Henderson played a centre-half recently.
Yeah. These guys, they can play any position. Anyone can play any position. It's just perhaps they haven't got the qualities in one or two departments, which each of the positions kind of maybe requires a little bit more than others. I'm sure them too can do the function of organising, starting the ball up for the back. Perhaps they're just not great sliding tacklers, or perhaps they haven't got the beef and the bulk about them to win the standing challenges.
I don't think it's...
I'm sure they're competent enough to survive back there.
I think it's more that it upsets the balance of the team, doesn't it? Because, you've got the way that Henderson plays will be different from how Joel Matip would play, just purely on the basis. Like, for example, you're probably looking at Jordan Henderson, and he's probably looking at the pitch and visualising passes in a different way to Matip would, just because normally Henderson's that much further up the pitch, when he's kind of looking for through balls and, like little 1-2s and kind of things like that. So, but I agree with what you're saying, I don't think it's an excuse. I don't think it's
you see guys like Wayne Rooney move from striker to centre mid, and you see other guys move from right back to right mid, or even conversely the other way. And I understand that perhaps then it means they don't have all the necessary qualities to play in those positions, but at the end of the day, they're all professional footballers. If you can't play the majority of the positions, I think Pep Guardiola on occasion said, "I'll play Alisson in midfield." I think you've got to be capable to do that at this level of the game. And
I agree.
I'm sure they're okay.
But if I said to you that for the next, 4 weeks, your starting centre-half partnership is going to be Scott McTominay and Paul Pogba...
To be fair, I don't think he'd play Paul Pogba. I think he probably puts on a little bit more defensive or with a bit more effort level about him. But I know what you mean. It's not ideal.
No.
But at the same time, you go, okay, he can still do the function. Obviously, he's not going to be as good defensively as Harry Maguire, but he can still do the function. I don't think it's an enormous drop-off in quality, I wouldn't say. Obviously, it is from Van Dijk, because Van Dijk's the cream of the cream.
Yes, I think that's the problem, isn't it? I think, I don't know. I think more than anything, it seems to upset Liverpool's balance a bit. I think what we're kind of seeing is how... I think the main thing, or one of the main things, is that, obviously when Van Dijk is there, I guess the wing-backs probably feel they have a bit more freedom to kind of bomb forward, just because Van Dijk is generally very dominant, along with Joe Gomez. But obviously, as soon as you're playing Henderson there, I guess it's not necessarily like Henderson's there, we must be more defensive. But I guess in the back of your mind, you're kind of thinking, is Hendo going to get to that? Van Dijk is, but is Hendo going to get to that? He's not quite as fast. But is that just
purely pace? Yeah, but that's the thing. That's just an individual quality that that's like preference, whatever. But like if you think like, I'd much rather have Fabinho playing CDM than, say, Gabriel Ogbonna of West Ham. I feel like when you're at those top clubs, I feel like I'm more than happy for those guys to be playing those positions. It just generally isn't ideal for those individuals who've got to play in those ones because I'm out of position.
And I think I agree with you to a certain extent, because I think against, say, Southampton when they did it, I thought, a little bit odd, but perhaps as it turned out, I didn't. We didn't win, but as in against certain opposition, you're kind of like, okay, we'll accept it. But against United, you want your best centre backs playing rather than centre mid. I guess
to be honest, they didn't even get troubled in that game against United. Rashford decided to play offside for half of it, and the rest of the time United didn't really attack him.
And I guess this is what I'm saying. I think they did all right. As in Fernandes is arguably one of the best attacking mid/central midfielders in the league at the moment.
And he had an absolute stinker.
Well, he did yesterday, but up until yesterday, he's been one of the better ones. But I guess my discussion was, I guess you've kind of answered this already, but I don't know how I feel about playing players out of position when you have got players in that position already, if that makes sense. Like, I know they're limited options, but like, for example, Reece Williams he's actually played all right since he's come in for Liverpool. He's fairly young. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky one. I think I can see why Klopp didn't do it, because I think it would be
for the occasion.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the same way. I'm not surprised he didn't start Curtis Jones. I think. Even though Shaqiri and Klopp didn't like Shaqiri, he's not in favour with him hugely.
Not massively, no.
And I'm not surprised Klopp went, I'll play Shaqiri over Curtis Jones.
Bit more experience,
It's the level of the occasion. You've got to have a bit of experience for those big rivalry games, and you get caught out, you'll be shown up. If anything, it'll do more damage to some players to play in those games because they won't be able to forget it. The fans, whether it's their own team or the other team, will always sort of abuse them for it going there forward. Like, you know what I mean? If Curtis Jones comes on and does what Gerrard did against Chelsea when he slipped, it's like he's never living that down. He's got a long way to go.
That's his career set, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone will know he's slippy.
Well, it's a little bit like Phil Jones, isn't it?
Yeah, he did that from a young age, so it's like when it's always on him now. Even though I wouldn't have said he's that bad of a centre-back. He just makes some strange decisions on occasion. But that's the thing. People get brandished with them otherwise. So I'm not surprised he hasn't played them.
right, you mentioned Fernandes had a bit of a stinker. So I think I read a stat that's saying against the top 6 sides, he has 1 goal, which was a penalty, and 0 assists.
Well, that's because United have only scored 1 total.
Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. But do you think teams go in with a mindset of, if you stop Fernandes, you stop United a little bit?
I don't. Only because I wouldn't have said they man mark him or anything in particular.
No, I wouldn't say they man mark him.
I just feel like the way United set up when they play big teams is like, we've got an opportunity to play the counter-attacking football, which we're pretty good at. And they go, I don't know if you saw the average positions for that game against Liverpool, but I think only Rashford was average position was in your half. Everybody else was in the own half. So they very much just set up in a way. It's different to any... Yeah, it's different to when we play against the... Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about the game plan.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what it is with Fernandes, and I've seen him a few times, and I think he is good. For me, though, I think it's not so much his ability, but he just seems to have a very good mindset. And I think as a result, he kind of drags the bit. As in, you just have to look at how Paul Pogba's improved since Fernandes has been there. As in, Paul Pogba nowadays actually looks like a half-decent central midfielder compared to before Fernandes joined, I think. And I don't know, perhaps he just gives everyone that little bit of confidence.
To be fair, you see that when he got substituted at the end of the game, he was not happy, and I love that. I just love someone who's willing to give it and go, I want to stand on this pitch.
Do you know what? It does my head in. Like, there've been a couple of times where like Mane's been subbed off, and he has a bit of a paddy, and people go, "Oh, there's unrest at Liverpool." It's like, no, he's just livid that he's come off, and that's a good thing. If he just came off smiling and waving, you'd be like, hang on a second.
I tell you what, though, I did enjoy that Wijnaldum was almost trying to tease Fernandes, saying, "Oh, you should get off. You've been subbed and all that." And he was like, "No, I want to stay on," because obviously it was the same moment Tomine was going off, went down injured, and then Wijnaldum gets brought off as a sub, literally about 5 seconds later, and it's almost like, "Oh, you got the last laugh there, didn't you?" But yeah.
I think in the end, I think Klopp went for the draw. To be honest, at that point, I think
to be honest, I enjoyed that. Ollie thought, "Let's bring on Greenwood. Let's go for a win." I thought, "Gosh, here we go."
But yeah, and I think it was interesting because there's a, like when they were talking, I think it might have been Arsenal. Yeah, it was Arsenal before, and bear with me on this. They said that, like they said how it was a bit of a domino effect, and that the midfield don't pass the ball forward to Aubameyang because he's not making the runs. But then Aubameyang doesn't make the runs because there's such a huge gap between the midfield. He's not expecting it. Yeah. And I wonder perhaps if Fernandes has basically filled that kind of little function for United where, perhaps before Martial would be trying to get come in front of the defenders with his back to goal to get the ball. And now he thinks, right, well, if Bruno's getting it, I'm going to run in behind because that ball's coming.
Yeah.
So I wonder perhaps if he's kind of filled that role a little bit for United. He seems to have had don't get me wrong, he is a quality footballer, but I think for me it's the kind of mental, the impact it's had on United's mentality, I think, is the interesting effect.
So speaking of Martial, like you did then, I haven't put it in our notes, but I thought you can notice why French players seem to come to the Premier League and struggle, and it's because they are by far the laziest footballers on the pitch. They get away with it in the French national side because all of them do it and they're all really skillful and that's how they get away with it. But my goodness, it was frustrating watching him. There was one bit where he couldn't have been more than 5 metres away from, I think it was Thiago with the ball. And, a few of the United guys were up. And Thiago was pretty much just jogging with the ball towards, the United guys. And there was no one really in between. And Martial literally was like, "Oh, I'm going to pretend to jog back." And he was going slower than Thiago, even though Thiago had the ball, and he was looking around. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was so glad when Ollie brought him off. Like I know I said before when Josh was on, and he was saying how the people he was in that group chat with were talking about different United players, and the only thing I agreed with what they were saying was the fact that Martial's lazy. And my goodness, I was just like, bring him off. Absolutely nothing. He doesn't contribute nothing when we haven't got the ball. It was just beyond frustrating.
Well, and the thing is as well, as in, you can sometimes forgive that if a striker is like lethal in front of goal, but as in Martial's not.
No.
I think I just think back to the United Liverpool game January last year. United had that big chance. They cross it into the box. Martial is almost 1-on-1, and he blazes it over the bar. And you're kind of like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a little bit. I don't know. I've always questioned a little bit about Martial. I've never really rated him, to be honest. I don't think he puts enough graft in. I don't know. Perhaps as a United fan, you correct me.
To be fair, Liverpool players, Klopp doesn't buy lazy guys. He buys guys that are literally going to run their socks off.
Yeah.
And that starts at the top with Firmino all the way down. And that's really nice to see. And United don't do that. They buy the players before the grafters, in a sense. And to be honest, he does come up clutch on the odd occasion. And he can score some beautiful goals.
Is it enough, though?
To be honest, it's about 60% of the games he does good in. Like any game we don't have the ball, he is literally, as useful as a corner flag to United. He doesn't do anything. He just literally walks around like, I don't know what to do. It's like, mate, you're playing left mid. If you're playing left mid, you've got to help the left back in these scenarios. And he just sort of doesn't. He's like, no, not my responsibility.
Well, do you think there's an element of, if United had played Cavani yesterday, they would have had a bit more of an out? Like you said, that they were kind of a bit, not necessarily defensive, but conservative then, should we say, in the first half.
I can understand why they didn't play Cavani, because the way Ollie has been setting up against top 6 teams is to play counter-attacking football, and that all centres around Rashford playing through the middle, because he has to be the pace for people to run into. So I don't know if Cavani has that to him. I haven't seen much of him playing yet.
Okay, fair enough.
But you know what I mean? Even if you're starting Dan James, just somebody who's going to put an ounce of graft together. Like, people say, Dan James is a bit of a bust on occasion because he makes the odd mistake. But my goodness, Martial gets away with it because he never does anything to make a mistake. It's like, it's very easy to get away with it then, actually.
It's like I said, you can almost forgive that if he was prolific in front of goal or he was really creative. Like Messi's a little bit like that, as in Messi's not exactly the hardest worker defensively, but he offers so much going forward that you almost forgive it a little bit, whereas Martial doesn't seem to... For me, he's a good player. I don't think he does quite enough to warrant the amount of walking that he does.
No. I to be honest, I don't think any player, apart from your Messis, your Ronaldos, those seriously top-tier talents, can get away with doing nothing.
No.
Just for their attacking output. And Martial, far and away, is not even close to touching the feet of those players in terms of what he can do. So, he's another one which is a little bit frustrating.
Fair enough. Right, we've already discussed Alisson and De Gea, haven't we? Because I said that earlier, Right, this is an interesting one. So I saw a stat that this time last year, Liverpool played United. They won and went 30 points clear at the top. And this year in the same fixture, a draw means that United stay 3 points ahead of Liverpool. So the question is, are Liverpool 27 points worse, or are United 33 points better than this time last year? To which you answer with...
I did put both in that note, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment. But what I will say is United were better in the second half of last year, which is why we caught up. I don't know if we actually caught up, but why we had a decent end and not a good start, which is why we were so far behind at this stage. But I'd probably say United are about 10 points of performance better, but that Liverpool team far and away is not playing anywhere close to what they're playing.
No, I think it's more... I would say it's kind of like 70-30, the 70% being Liverpool of not as good, and the 30% being that United have improved.
For Liverpool to be as good means they have to win every single game without dropping a point. And that wasn't on the agenda. I don't think anybody was...
No, and I guess that's interesting, actually, is in order to be equal to last year, they have to be perfect.
Yeah, like even if you would, even if at the end of that game it's like, it was only, Liverpool now lead by just 15 points rather than 30. It's like, are United 15 better or Liverpool 15 worse? I think everyone's like, well, there's 15, and the fact that it's basically it's 15 from perfection. It's like, can't really. I mean,
what do you mean you're not perfect?
Yeah. Liverpool and Man City both used to just shred people up, and I feel like they haven't got that ability as such.
Anymore.
It's not
at the
clicking
moment
as much. Yeah, City is starting to find it again. But then it definitely feels like even when these teams are winning, the Liverpools and the Cities, it's more your 1-0s, your 2-0s. I know you shredded up Crystal Palace the other day, but apart from that, it's much more a grind of a game now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you say City is starting to find that form. They've had to adapt how they play to find that as well. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Klopp does in the next couple of weeks now, because Liverpool need to kind of kick on a bit. So yeah, you've raised moving on from that, you've raised an interesting point about United. I'm just reading it here. I don't know whether you want to pose the question.
Yeah, so with United being outside, and I'm saying outside contenders for the title, even though we're first place in the Premier League, on right, even though we're outside contenders for the title, is it a result of United just always having the resources to go out and buy and keep trying to rectify it until eventually a solution like Fernandes comes along? Or is it down to the fact that they've kept a lot of those players that were there in the Fergie years, and they've sort of brought through a lot of the youth academy who obviously would have been developing under those Fergie years? And is it sort of that Man United core identity coming through again? Because you see players like Greenwood, Rashford, McTominay, they're obviously from the system. And obviously you've still got... I was thinking which players were still there from the United era, and I thought the only one which really comes to mind was Phil Jones. I don't think he's really the identity. But De Gea was there, wasn't he? Yeah, so you have some of those guys, the backbones. Yeah. So you got some of those backbone guys still there, and it's like, well... Yeah, I just wanted to pose the question. Is it just money?
Can I give a cop-out answer?
Go on.
It's both.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I think it's both. I mean, you may correct me on this. Again, I'm a Liverpool fan, you're a United fan. But I think Fernandes has been huge for United. Absolutely massive. As in, I think Fernandes for United is a little bit what Suarez was like for Liverpool. As in, like, just a spark, something that kind of... Not only is he good in his own right, but he kind of makes those around him good. So I think there is that. But... And I think it's kind of tied into the whole kind of bringing academy players through, McTominay, Rashford, Greenwood. I think Solskjaer... I'm of the opinion that I don't...
Sorry, Solskjaer is also a Fergie player, which also helps that narrative. But
I still don't think that Solskjaer's like an incredible tactician or anything like that. But the one thing I think that he has done, which the Man United managers before him failed to do, is install a good mentality.
Yeah.
As in, he get like his players work for him, and I think that's partly because players like McTominay, Rashford, Greenwood, they've all had to work to get to their positions in the squad. And I think part of the problem that United had before that was that, you had players like, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you had Paul Pogba, who, he's one of those players who would just walk into the team because he's Paul Pogba. Now they kind of sat there like, oh, well, McTominay's not this global superstar, and he starts. So if I don't perform well, I'm not going to play. So I think it's a bit of a combination of both, to be honest. I think, and, it sounds a bit stupid, because I think, obviously, a combination is the ideal scenario, isn't it? But I think there's an element of United did this kind of continuous spending thing, and it didn't work. When you think about how much United have spent up until now, we'll say kind of before Solskjaer, if you think of like up to the end of Mourinho's time, it's a scary amount. It's a scary amount of money that United spent, and Mourinho won a League Cup, but as in
we've had Lukaku, Di Maria, Suarez, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It's like these aren't small name players. Did I say Suarez then?
Yes.
I think I went to. Did I say Ibrahimovic?
Yeah.
Lukaku, not Suarez, Sanchez, sorry. Two S's, two Z's.
Yeah.
We spent big on some big name players, and not very many of them have worked.
No. Well, like you think, you spend like 30 million on Lindelof, 30 million on Luke Shaw, and I'm not necessarily saying these are bad investments, but it's just a lot of money spent. So you've got Lindelof 30 million, Shaw for 30 million.
Wan-Bissaka was about 50 odd.
Wan-Bissaka was 50, but that was a
Maguire was 90 odd.
Yeah, then you've got who was I thinking of then?
Fred for 50.
Eric Bailly was like 35 million.
Fred was 50. Fred was 50. That is the most outrageous fee.
Matic was a load of money. So you've spent 30, a lot and a lot and a lot of money, and I think perhaps Solskjaer's been the one to go, no, do you know what? It's not getting us anywhere.
To be fair, it is the accumulation of lots of, obviously the big sums, but the 30, you know what I mean? It's the accumulation over time. But we do sell a lot of it back, but not all of it, which is,
No.
But of course, United are never going to have that issue.
So I guess, like I said, cop out, I think it's both.
Yeah. Interesting what you're saying about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Not being the tactician, but more the sort of personality and the... I'm not going to say grit, because he doesn't look like the sort of guy who has grit. Although some of the players have said that he does let off steam on the players if they're doing bad.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he does. Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying he's a pushover.
No,
but he seems to be very much in the Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go on. What's your question?
But interestingly, the NFL's in a period of lots of head coaches getting fired and hired. And a few of the guys in particular getting hired aren't they based on their tactical nous.
No.
Like a lot of them will get hired from positions like linebacker coach or something like that, who's not, it's not even like one of the main three, as in a head coach, an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. These are coming from like one of the back guys, and it's because of their character as such. Like the Jets just signed, I think it's Robert Saleh or Sailor. I can't remember how you say his surname. And to be fair, he's a very good defensive coordinator. But one of the key things about it is he just gets absolutely amped up on the sideline, and the players love playing for him. And you just find in a lot of these teams that are trying to almost rebuild, they can't rebuild on a personality like Adam Gase, who was the Jets head coach, and he is apparently a great offensive mind, because he's got the personality of a fish. It's like no one cares, what he says or what he does, because nobody respects him, because he's just like a really bland flower, nah. But you see a guy like Robert Saleh go in there, and
you want to play for him.
He goes crazy on the sideline. He's like jumping around. To be fair, he's built like a tank as well, so I think everyone's like, when they see him. But you know what I mean? That's sort of, perhaps that is coming out a little bit for some, crossing sports into like the Premier League, because
maybe.
I'm not going to say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is some absolute tank of a human with big muscles and all that, which everyone goes, but perhaps he does bring a bit more of that Fergie era character to the the team.
I mean, for me, if you look at Liverpool, there's an element to that about like when Jurgen Klopp joined.
Klopp's got the combo of both, which is good.
Yeah, but certainly when he joined, I think Klopp knew when he joined he didn't have the quality of players to be competing, but I think he thought, right, well, if I can get these guys motivated, and I think it's just a change of mindset, which I think that's been the biggest change with United over the past 2 years. I don't think they've necessarily got more quality than they've had. I'd argue that on paper they've potentially got, less quality, as in, when you think of some of the players that have come and gone, as in terms of just being a striker, Lukaku is more prolific than Martial or Rashford, for example. But Solskjaer has managed to get
more out of those.
Not Martial, but he's managed to get the majority of his players running for him, which Mourinho didn't manage, Van Gaal certainly didn't manage, and David Moyes didn't manage. So, there we are. Those are my thoughts.
I could put something out. Yeah, well,
go on.
I was only shocked because when I looked at the Premier League table before I was doing this, I was like, Liverpool are fourth. Liverpool are fourth after 18 games, and they could be fifth if Everton win their game in hand. I think it's against Villa, so obviously that's touch and go. But they're 4 points off first. Their defence is a bit of a concern. The attack can't seem to score. And it's like, obviously they come into this season off the back of, an insane season. So, I mean, after 18 games, you can't, obviously you can't, it's a very tight situation. But, you know what I mean? They're there on merit at the moment. They've, obviously... Yeah. It's tongue-in-cheek. I'm not just trying to rouse it because, I'm a United fan, look how Liverpool are. But they're fourth at this stage. Is this like... At what point does it become, oh gosh, this could quite quickly go wrong? Because, you know what I mean? What you want is a little bit of a buffer. Everybody wants a bit of a buffer.
I get what you're saying. I think there's an element to which... The Southampton game was a stinker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The West Brom game was always going to be difficult. One of the first ones that Sam Allardyce was back as West Brom manager. And, I reckon if you look to the statistics, whenever a team sacks a manager and gets a new manager, one of the first results they have with the new manager, or the first couple of results, are fairly positive, relative to what they were before, obviously. Who did they play before that? I'm trying to think now. Yeah, West Liverpool. No, Liverpool. I can't remember now. I honestly can't remember. But yeah, I think it's... and I mean, the one positive I would say about Liverpool is that they weren't... I don't think they were bad against United.
No.
I don't think you looked at that game and you thought, gosh, Liverpool did well to get a draw, or, they were dominated, or... as in, like, let's not forget, the first time Liverpool United played last season, they drew. And look at the gulf in the teams at that point. So I don't think yesterday would have been...
Yeah, rivalry games, they're always going to be tight. But it was just more a case of the fact that they were fourth in the league. And they weren't... Well, they were leading in goals scored. But now that that's drying up, now it should start to become a bit like a... Ooh.
Well, I mean,
I said earlier in the season, I don't think Liverpool have finished top four. I was obviously tongue-in-cheek. But they're on... So the Man United and Man City are first and second, and obviously it's very tight still, so it doesn't really count. But obviously, no, I'm not going to say that because that would just be pointless. Because I was going to say, obviously Klopp will keep his job. I don't think anybody in their slightest mind thinks Klopp is ever going to lose his job at Liverpool.
Well, I mean,
but it's just what can they do to change it up?
Well, I think the big thing for Liverpool right now is that Jota is potentially coming back at the start of February. Which can't come soon enough, because let's not forget that at the start of the season, Jota was our best attacking player.
Are you a little bit concerned though that Jota is the spark for Liverpool? Only considering you've got Mane, Salah, and Firmino.
No, because I think these sort of things go in cycles. You look at, like, for example, you could turn around to City and say, are you not concerned that Gabriel Jesus is your best striker when Aguero is out of form? I think these things go in cycles, and for me, what this season is demonstrating is that Liverpool just don't have enough depth. When Liverpool could do with swapping out Roberto Firmino because he's not scoring enough goals, and the alternative is Divock Origi, you're going to struggle, I think. I think there's an element to which, I think last season, we were very fortunate with injuries. As in we didn't really have any... I think the only significant injuries we had... Henderson was out for a couple at the end, but by that point the league was done. Fabinho missed a fair chunk, but we managed to deal without Fabinho, and Alisson was injured for the first, I think it was like 10 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we barely had anything. Whereas this season, it's almost been the opposite. We've had injuries kind of left, right and centre. So I think it doesn't concern me that Jota, I think Jota's, even in the short time that he's been in Liverpool, I think he's clearly shown that he's a very good player. But I think really what is shown is that Liverpool need to invest a bit of money, I think.
A bit more depth, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, not
just for the purpose of giving players rest or because of injuries, but just to give a few more options. Like you see that with City, they buy 100%. Every single type of winger you can imagine to play any single type of formation.
As in, like, City win the league with Sané and Sterling as the wingers, and you're like, oh, well, Sterling and Sané are the best wingers in the league. And then City go, yeah, we'll get Riyad Mahrez as an alternative. And you're kind of like, what?
Well, that was purely because Sané was injured, wasn't it?
Well, that's like, the thing. Liverpool don't have those kind of options. As soon as... Liverpool have the option where if one gets injured, then we can put somebody else in. But we don't have anyone else where you think, right, we need somebody to come on now and make an instant change to the game. Which
to
is
be
what
honest,
Jota was doing at the start of the season, but obviously he's been injured.
I mentioned this to you about 2 years ago, I think, when you won the Champions League. I said, okay, you've won the Champions League, but I said you've got to think forward because that team's not the youngest. Obviously, the defence is pretty young, but Mane, Firmino, and Salah, I think, are all post 25. I think I think Salah may even be close to 30ish now. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think
on
he's
the
like
older
29,
end. So
28.
you've always got to be forward planning. I feel like Fergie did that pretty well when he signed Rooney, when he still had Van Nistelrooy. You know what I mean? He did that with quite a few players where he brought them in early. So do you think Liverpool might splurge out in next summer's
I was
window?
about to say, I think, to be honest with you, I think Liverpool would have invested more had we not had COVID. I don't think it was a case of they thought, well, we want to keep all of our money, but I think they thought, well, it's a little bit unpredictable at the moment. We've just won the league. Perhaps we'll just kind of see how it goes, kind of thing. We get Thiago in for like 25 mil, and we get Jota for, I think it was like 41 million or something like that, which it is a lot of money, but for the champions of England, it's not a huge amount. I wouldn't be surprised if, come the summer, we see more signings, not necessarily, selling Salah or anything like that, but, just alternatives.
I was going to ask you about that then. Would you consider that? Or do you think that is just absolutely the wrong direction of
I think that's the wrong direction, because I think as soon as you do that, Liverpool...
But it does send a message then to all the other players, like, shape up a little bit, because we're happy to sell Salah.
Yeah,
I mean, you think... I'm not saying Fabinho or Henderson's playing bad, but if they ever were to sort of slack off, I'm not saying they would. You know what I mean? It always puts that impetus, like, okay, this at the end of the day, this is Liverpool. This isn't Henderson United or as I said United. Liverpool haven't got a second name, but it's not just the Henderson team or the Fabinho team or the Salah team. This is Liverpool, and it's like the team, the club itself is bigger than the players in it. So you've always got to be thinking forward.
I don't think they would do that, because I think Klopp has got them. He's got them in the right mindset as it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think you're ever going to have Salah not working for you, or players like Liverpool players not working for you. And I think Liverpool have gone down the path previously where they've been like, oh well, statistically this player is better than this player, therefore we should get them. And I think there's an element to which is like, no, you've got to have a balance between what's good now and what is going to be good. You can't just go, right, we're going... Because I remember for ages, Liverpool had a sign-in policy of like...
that sign-in
they have to be
policy
under 21, they have to be under 21, they have to have done this, they have to have done that. And you're kind of like, that's not how football works. It's not a,
It's not a numbers game.
No, it's not a numbers
game. It's an eye test game.
Sometimes it's like you just got to watch the players play, and if they're playing well, you invest. Thiago is the perfect example of that. If you're going on age, you would never buy Thiago because he's like 29, 30. But you watch Thiago play and you think he is quality. We want that player.
If you want to win now, you've got to have a mix of lots of different age groups. Because you can't have constant overturn, like in one season everyone goes, but continuously
I wouldn't be surprised if the investment in the summer would be in like younger players. Not necessarily like 17-year-olds, but sort of like 20 to 25. But yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes. There we are. Right, so that's the end of Liverpool United talk. That was fairly substantial. We've been nearly an hour talking about that.
And I enjoyed that. It was
a solid discussion. I guess we're kind of sticking with United a little bit. As we said at the start, Wayne Rooney has retired from football completely now. So he's
as a player.
Derby County. Yes,
as a player.
He's as a player. He's he's just left the sport. We'll never see him again. No, he's Derby County boss. I thought we could just do a little dissection of his career, to be honest, because even as a Liverpool fan, I'm a bit of a fan of Wayne Rooney's. I'm sure there are some Liverpool fans out there who will have just their jaws will have hit the floor a little bit. But yeah, as a United fan, what are your thoughts on Wayne Rooney?
I really like him.
Yeah?
I think as a player, he summed up what every player rather, should do. Like, right. I don't think you ever saw Wayne Rooney give less than 100%.
No.
And he always was... He played the style of football that was very beneficial to his career because it wasn't based on speed. it wasn't 100% based on skill or power or just being a big guy. He just had a little bit of everything, but at the same time he was absolutely ruthless, but he just always gave effort, and I really liked him. I mean, obviously, as a United fan, I was going to, but he always came up big in the big moments. I mean, that bicy against City.
I feel like, even considering what Wayne Rooney did for United, and you just look at some of his numbers, we'll kind of dissect them a little bit in a minute, but I feel like a lot of United fans kind of always bang on about David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Ronaldo, and Rooney seems to almost get brushed under the rug a little bit, considering what he achieved, as in, like...
Wayne Rooney was almost the torchbearer for a small period of time, because it was the sort of class of 92 for ages, and Rooney came in towards the end of that, or maybe even right at the prime of it, when it was on the second half almost, where like Becks had left, Nicky Butt wasn't around anymore.
You still had like Phil Neville and Scholes, and you. Sorry,
Phil Neville was probably about to ditch it to
Gary
Everton,
Neville.
and Gary and Scholes and Giggs were still there, and it's like gradually one by one they were going away. But Rooney came in, and he was sort of the torchbearer, and then, so in a sense, they were still the line, the big piece. Rooney came in, and obviously he was a huge part of that United team. But then Ronaldo came in, and then you had Tevez and Berbatov, and it's like, well, he was never there. He's never like what. I think if we have like Fernandes is to United now, he has been obviously he's been as important to us as Fernandes, but in a sense Fernandes is the player at Man United at the moment where nobody else, if you take Fernandes out of that team stinks, but I don't think you'd ever take Wayne Rooney out of any of the United teams and think it's going to stink, because they've always had world class talent around him. But
well, and it's interesting you say that, actually, because the statistics would reflect that a little bit, I guess, but we'll delve into that. And I mean, what were your thoughts when Everton left United? Everton, come on, Jack, get your words out. When Wayne Rooney left United to go to Everton, not that long ago. What were your feelings then?
I really didn't mind.
No?
I thought he's done his stint at United. Record appearance holder, I think, or if he's not, it's Bobby Charlton. But he's definitely right, second. He's if he's not. Same for the goals. He's either first or second. And it's like, well, he did his stint. He suffered it under Moyes. And I think he was there all the way up to Van Gaal before he left. Yeah. And it's like, he didn't leave us when the going got tough. He was there. I think he just left a little bit after because he was a bit old. But, fair enough. He came from Everton. He still has the accent. He's always supported Everton as his, first and foremost club. And, I don't blame him for leaving. And I there's no animosity about the way he left either. You see some people leave and you're like, Lampard went to City, and then that just felt weird. You know what I mean? It's not such as bad when you see guys like Gerrard go off to the MLS, because it doesn't matter. But even though Rooney went to Everton, that's the club he came from. There's, you know what I mean? It's almost a friendliness of, homecoming.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It wasn't a case of he left United to go to anybody. It was like, well, I'm leaving United, I'm going back to my home club.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, like Lampard left Chelsea and then went to City, and you as a Chelsea fan, you must have been kind of like, well, hang on a second, like this is our club hero.
Yeah.
And he's just gone to play for one of our rivals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you didn't want to play for us, why are you playing for them? It's like...
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really have any issue with it, no.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. I guess, we can talk a little bit about the golden generation, in inverted commas, because, you had kind of, we're talking about Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard, Ferdinand, Terry, Beckham, and the greatest of all time, James Milner. Wayne Rooney... Sorry?
He's not old enough to be in that generation, is he?
Milner? Yeah, of course he is.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, James Milner was in amongst that little group of players.
Wow, I didn't realise that. I remember Owen Hargreaves.
Well, as in James Milner's probably about 34 now, so he would have been, he's probably about 3 or 4 years younger than Gerrard would have been.
But, okay. But yeah, the golden generation's more for the real premier ones. But yeah, carry on.
How dare you discuss James Milner in such horrific words. But do you think anyone else in that generation achieved more than Wayne Rooney did? Because, I think obviously if you go in purely on silverware, I think the only ones that, well, obviously Scholes because he played for United.
Yeah.
And
Ferdinand to an extent because he was also there.
And also Beckham. But as in, Lampard and Terry, they won quite a bit of silverware at Chelsea. Gerrard's not so much.
To be honest, you could almost for each of them go for something a little bit different. In the sense that Gerrard and Lampard, they are bigger cult heroes at Chelsea and Liverpool than Rooney is at United.
Yeah.
Rooney, by far, is an exceptional player, and I think every Man United fan ever would
say that, yeah.
Right at the top tier of players to have played. But I think what Lampard and Gerrard did for Chelsea and Liverpool, I think they've got a bit more of a cult status about them. And
yes.
When you look at Beckham and what he's done internationally, not just for him as a personal guy, but for the nation in general in terms of how much interest and he's like an ambassador for everything pretty much now.
Well, yeah, and he basically created American football, as in before David Beckham went to LA Galaxy, like we were kind of all over you, like Americans play football? Like,
yeah,
what?
exactly. You wouldn't have known any of the teams.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing. So he's done a lot on that side of things. To be fair, I don't really know what Terry... Because in a sense, I feel like Lampard's always had that cult status more than Terry.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry's sort of his wingman through the whole thing. So he sort of falls into that category. But Rooney, Scholes and Ferdinand were kind of just like three of the main pillars for that Man United team for such a long period.
I mean, I guess the thing is as well, is like, I get what you're saying, is in Gerrard is respected not for necessarily his trophies.
Although, to be fair, Gerrard won more Champions Leagues than all of them.
Oh, exactly. Look, don't get me wrong. Gerrard didn't exactly... It's not like he had a bad career.
No,
but
he's a big cup game guy, which is kind of always fun.
Yeah, but like when you kind of... Well, and the thing is as well, I think he probably would have won a Premier League trophy if he'd had the right players around him at certain points.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But as in like Gerrard is respected. If you look at his individual achievements, as a midfielder, what he did for Liverpool as a club, you respect him for that. But I mean... The thing that you probably can't compare the rest of them with, compared to Wayne Rooney, is like Wayne Rooney was, he's England's top goal scorer, as in, the big criticism of, well, Scholes retired early from international football.
Yeah.
To
be fair, though, he was always the one discarded out of the Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes. He was always the one playing left mid criminally. So I'm not surprised he retired early, but yeah, go on.
But, as in, like, you had Gerrard, Lampard, they just didn't really click for England. Terry...
Well, that's the thing, none of them did, really.
No, not
apart
really.
From Beckham. Apart from Beckham with his goal against Greece. Every single other one didn't do anything for England.
No, I agree. And I think, out of those ones, you've probably got Beckham, he's the one who probably did the most for England. Gerrard, in terms of longevity, was with England for donkeys and, he never... Yeah, so... But, that you can't really compare them with Wayne Rooney in terms of what they did for England, as in he's the outright top goal scorer. I think he's second in most appearances behind Peter Shilton, which...
And he's a keeper, so it's always going to be a keeper, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's only 5 appearances, and like, let's be fair, he probably missed 5 appearances through injury. So it's crazy when you look at the statistics, as in this incredible... career. But I guess, perhaps we'll move on to some of the discussion points from there, as in I've got a picture on our notes of not all of Wayne Rooney's Premier League seasons, but apart from like the first 2 where he didn't make any appearances. So basically 2003, 2018. And do you know what? I'll be honest with you, this surprised me a little bit. There are only... Out of all of those seasons, there are 2 seasons where he hit more than 20 goals in a season.
Yeah, to be fair, the age of scorers that can score billions of goals is now. I know Ronaldo and Suarez both did it a couple of years ago. Ronaldo's more than a decade now ago. But it's only modern day football now that you see lots of people scoring more than 20 goals every single season.
Yeah, I mean,
Drogba, I don't think... Someone was telling me the stats for... He's not a particularly good Premier League footballer from the regards of stats for goals. Because I think he only got to 10 goals. I think 2 or 3 times, surprisingly, throughout his entire Chelsea career, which I thought was absolutely insane. Honestly,
surely not.
I find it now, but
okay,
you know what I mean.
Well,
you get lots. Yeah, go on.
While you're looking at that, I'll just kind of run through the statistics. So you've kind of got 03-04, Rooney scored 9. The following season, he scored 0. They were both for Everton. Then 04-05, he scored 11. 05-06, 16. 06-07, 14. 07-08, 12. 08-09, 12. 09-10 was 26. And 10-11 was 11 goals. 11-12 was 27 goals. 12-13 was 12 goals. 13-14 was 17 goals. 14-15 was 12 goals. 15-16 was 8. 16-17 was 5. And then his final season with Everton was 10. You know, so obviously you have that kind of natural decline at the end. But you know, that's part of aging as a footballer, I think. But do you think there's an element to which, you know, that's that, you know, incredible longevity from Rooney, but does that suggest that perhaps he wasn't quite as prolific as, you know, he was made out to be? Do you think?
Perhaps, because he was a central striker at the beginning, and you can see from, well, he had a good start for the couple of years at the beginning, but you got to remember, he signed when he was 18 for United. Like, as an 18-year-old, scoring 11 goals, then 16, then 14, and then 12. That's all before the age of 21. And then he does have, well, every other year seems to be a decent one for a little bit, where he's getting 26, 27 on some occasion. But you got to remember, throughout that period, you also got Cristiano Ronaldo, who's gone on to score 30 goals on some of those occasions. Berbatov got close one year as well. And, you know, he's splitting it all out. You know, you've got a lot of good players in that team. So and it doesn't surprise me too much that he doesn't have all of the necessary goals. Because, I mean, other guys were taking pens for a lot of the time as well. He's never been that just individual talisman.
Well, and perhaps it's just a symptom of how United used to play as well, like you said, as in, because they had so many outlets of, you know, they had Ronaldo, they had Tevez, they had Berbatov, you know, and that's just to name a few. Perhaps it was more because he wasn't necessarily a focal point. Then, well, that's the thing. So Ronaldo left at the end of the 10-11 season, I think, didn't he? Was it around then?
No, he left. He left after the 2009 Champions League final.
So
against
Barcelona.
So
08-09. Yeah. Well, there you go. So he left in 08-09, and then the following season, Wayne Rooney scores 26 goals.
Yeah, exactly. So you see how he develops.
Yeah, and how he developed more of a prominent role. Yeah, I guess that's fair. And you know, I think back.
Go on.
Sorry, go on.
Finish.
No, you go.
I was going to Drogba. I was going to sort of slide it in there.
Yeah, go on.
Because I found the stats.
Okay.
It wasn't 10 goals, it was 12, which I was on about. Drogba's record for Chelsea, all of these seasons bar one, he's got 20 games, and the one he didn't, he got 19. But he scored 10 goals in his first season, 12 in his second, 20 in his third, 8 in his fourth, 5 in his fifth. Then he got 29 in the one after that, then 11, then 5, and then when he came back, he got 4. And that was with 28 appearances. So he only got above 12 goals twice in his entire Chelsea career, and he was there for about 8 years, or 9 years even. So you know what I mean? Yeah, you find it just wasn't the done thing for strikers. Yeah, it wasn't the done thing for strikers to score billions of goals all the time. It was like you just had a lot of other guys contributing.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, just moving on from that a little bit, you know, as in Wayne Rooney's the top goal scorer for United, and you look at some of the other players in there, you know, you've got Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law, George Best, Ryan Giggs, as much as I dislike him, Paul Scholes, Ruud van Nistelrooy. They are very good players in there, you know, they're not your average Joes.
It surprised me that Paul Scholes was so high up on that list.
He's 155.
I know he played tons of games.
But I think that's because he was basically, you know, he was pretty old by the end, and I think that one is pretty much longevity.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, interesting career, Mr. Wayne Rooney. I think I don't know. I don't get me wrong. I love Wayne Rooney, but I always feel with Wayne Rooney that there's that little bit of he could have been like the Ronaldo. Do you get what I mean? Perhaps because he was so good so young.
I don't know if for any single season he's been as formidable as Ronaldo or Messi have been in any of theirs. But for a team, he could have been a Ronaldo in the sense of just being that driving force for every single game. I can see that.
Yeah. There we are. Right, that's enough of the Wayne Rooney loving. Should we do shock of the week?
Yeah, let's.
You go first.
Mine was Messi got a red card. got a red card.
And not for like a late challenge, like
he punched a man
for like hooking somebody in the face. Like what?
He's gonna have a big ban apparently.
Yeah, I read it's something like 10 games apparently, isn't it?
Wow.
It's crazy.
I guess that's probably the Spanish FA isn't happy with him leaving, so maybe we'll just discredit him with.
Well, and the thing is as well, it at that point, I think I'm right in saying that it was the Spanish Cup final. They were 2-1 up. He did that, got sent off. The team equalised, and then they ended up losing because they were.
Final. Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. Yeah, not ideal. My one. Are you happy for me to say my one because it does kind of link in with your highlights, I believe.
Yeah,
kind of. Okay, so my shock of the week was Chad Henne's 13-yard rush on third and 14, was it?
Yeah, 3rd and 14.
That was 14.
An angry run, that was. That was such an angry run. He, literally, you could see that Andy Reid decided this was going to be a running play from the beginning. But the speed he gets up to, because he doesn't look like an athletic guy. He looks like one of those quarterbacks like Tom Brady.
He had good running technique.
Yeah,
he had good running technique.
He just charged the guy. He didn't look for the space. He went, "Where's the guy? I'm going to hit him straight on and get across that line." And he did. Yeah. And it was like, get in there. What a guy.
As someone said, that Chad Henne will never have to buy his own beer ever again in Kansas. Like, he is just an absolute... He's a legend just for that one bit alone. But we'll discuss that more later. Right, sticking with football then, but we're going to do a bit more of a roundup of the kind of topics of this week. Big Sam.
He wins again.
He did win, you're right. I mean, your note here is he single-handedly broke Liverpool, who haven't won since. I mean, I'll be honest, I think that's a little bit extreme. Because at the end of
it all started
with Big Sam. It was a 1-1 draw. So
and he broke their spirit with it.
No. He didn't break Liverpool. He managed to not lose to Liverpool, which is what you need to do if you want to stay up. To be fair, but you know.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just beaten Wolves 3-2 after going down 2-1.
Now that is a good result. I know it sounds awful. I almost want West Brom to get relegated just because I can't be dealing with Big Sam. I'll be honest with you.
I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it.
A couple of weeks ago, when we had Liverpool get Allardyced, I was gritting my teeth as I was typing it. My whole body was like convulsing with rage. No, not quite. It's a little bit extreme, but yeah. So they beat Wolves 3-2. Come back.
Although they are no closer to getting safety than they were when at the start of it. He is still 4 points off, despite starting at 4 points off.
Should we move on to Wolves next? Because I feel like that's quite a natural progression.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about West Ham after. But yeah,
they are suffering.
Yeah, they're really struggling. As in, I'm quite... they lost... obviously, Liverpool bought Jota in the summer. So, Jota's gone. And then, obviously, Jimenez had that really unfortunate injury where he fractured his skull. So, that's kind of ruled him out for a significant amount of time. Mm-hmm. But I would have still thought that they would have had enough to beat West Brom. Like,
I know,
even without
and
those
that
players.
is what's super
it's
concerning.
Scary, isn't it?
They're 14th now. They haven't won in 6 games. They've only won once in the last 10 games.
Wow.
They're 15th in goals scored and 15th in goals conceded. And they're now closer to the relegation zone than Europe.
And I think the thing that would be concerning is that it's because it's not like... Well, like I said, it is quite clear-cut, and they've lost Jimenez, and I think now perhaps we're seeing how... Not reliant, but as in how important he is to their game plan.
Yeah, it's all based around get that ball in the box, get it for Jimenez. He's not that sort of like, Peter Crouch or, big unit of a man who's just going to knock it in with headers. He is still a very skilled player who's just super deadly. But it does all originate around how deadly he is to take up lots of players.
Jimenez is like an old school number 9. Fairly big, good in the air, good feet, powerful. Mm-hmm. I really like players like Jimenez. They're a bit of a dying breed as well, I think. Like when you look at how
pure number
strikers,
9s.
yeah, like what strikers are like nowadays. Like and sorry, that makes me sound like I'm about 90, doesn't it? How the strikers are nowadays.
Yeah, you see guys like Martial, and they're just lazy, or they're just all based on pace. And
again, you think of like your Fernando Torreses, like your Drogba's, your kind of like Wayne Rooney, Van Persie, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and these are kind of
they're strikers, big, out and out.
Yeah, out and out strikers. They're kind of big players, not like huge, but as in big stature, good in the air, good feet.
The sort of guy who demands at least 2 people on him.
Yeah. But, and I think that's what Jimenez offers to Wolves, and they haven't really been able to replace him since he's gone. But it's a bit of a weird one, really. As in, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I guess it would be such a shame if Wolves kind of regressed a little bit, because they've been, they've been the model club really for the past couple of seasons. They've gradually kind of built up. Hopefully they can kind of rediscover a bit of form. I think.
Fortunately for them, there's enough bad teams below them that they confidently will stay up.
I think. But
the thing is, West Brom are going to stay up. That's guaranteed because Sam Allardyce should stay.
Shut up.
But apart from that, you've got Sheffield United and Fulham, who probably will get relegated. And then you're looking at either Burnley or Brighton or Newcastle. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, but
well,
you know what I mean.
Just putting it out there tonight.
Wolves'
tonight, Newcastle are playing a 4-2-4 formation, so look out.
Wow. They want to win some games. Clearly, Steve Bruce is getting fed up of all the flack he's getting for not going attacking, and he's going. Yeah.
You want attack? Strikers. I'll give you attack. There we are. Right, Mr. Trippier, Kieran Trippier, playing for.
No, you missed West Ham. Sorry,
I have missed West Ham.
Are West Ham good again? That was my question.
No.
Yeah, they are.
Nah, I don't know.
David Moyes said, "We're not the old West Ham. We're the new West Ham." Unbeaten in 4, back-to-back wins against Everton. One of them. Mikel Antonio's back from injuries. 5 points off the top 4, 17 above the relegation places. They're a new West Ham. This is the Dimitri Payet-esque West Ham. You know what I mean? One of those good teams.
I mean, what I will say is this: is fair play to West Ham, because I remember seeing it was the first game of the season they were playing Newcastle. And I'm pretty sure did they lose or draw? I can't remember now.
Can't remember that back.
No, but I remember the next 10 fixtures were absolutely horrific. And I was like, if they don't win this first game, they're going to go down. And fair play to them, that just hasn't happened. They've actually done really, really well. So, I guess when we say they're the new West Ham, as in, I think they look that little bit too good to be in a... Well, when you compare them to Sheffield or Brighton or Fulham, and then you look at West Ham, you think, no, there's a bit of a gulf in quality there, I guess. So yeah, I guess in that sense, it is kind of the new West Ham.
I reckon. I genuinely think maybe I'd never say they're going to contend for Europe anytime soon because there's too many good teams to consider them. But they very much got that vibe of they're going to be 9th, 10th for quite a few seasons to come. Although, to be fair though, that's always a really volatile area where you could go big. I mean, to be fair play to them for getting rid of Haller. They said they made about a 20 million loss on him, but they said he's not what David Moyes wants, and we're going with David Moyes' vision. And David Moyes for years did it well with Everton, and it's like you give David Moyes. I'm not going to say resources to buy players because he's never been that sort of manager. But you give David Moyes a little bit of time and you actually centre what you're doing around him. You get some good performances out of it.
At least West Ham have got a bit of direction because for so long now it's been get a manager in, struggle a bit, sack him, then get David Moyes in on a temporary. Then they get rid of Moyes and then they get Pellegrini and Pellegrini does all right for one season.
They've had Bilic, they've had Sam.
Yeah, they've kind of flitted between managers, and it's good to see that they've gone right. David Moyes, this is who we're backing. We're going with his vision, and it's things like that they actually do make a difference. It's surprising how rather than just buying players because they've got good statistics. If a manager goes, right, this is who I want, go and get me this player, and I will make him play well. Which obviously, when you're kind of going back and forth between managers, you can't really do. So yeah, I stand corrected. Right, can I move on to Trippier now? Have I missed anything?
Trippier.
Okay,
go for it.
Well, actually, I'm saying that. Do you wanna take this one because I kind of know what's going on. But
Well,
I haven't really been following it, to be honest.
yeah, Trippier's got a 10-match ban for breaking betting rules. Obviously, it's against the rules. Shouldn't do it.
No.
But Atletico appealed it, saying basically, how can the English FA give a 10-match ban which affects Atletico Madrid matches to a player when he's not even playing in their league? He's playing in Spain. So they were like, well, what the heck? It's like, this isn't fair. You don't get jurisdiction over this guy. But FIFA said, yeah, English FA of worldwide effect. It's just surprising. Well, there's a little bit of... If they given him a 10-match ban because that means he misses the first leg of the Champions League match, which coincidentally is against an English team in Chelsea. Is this a little bit of bias from the EFA? And I'll FIFA in on it because, I mean, by the same logic, any team can... Well, any FA can go, oh, we're going to give a ban then to this player because... Why not? Because it affects, if they're not playing against one of our teams in the Champions League... You could see the Spanish FA give Neymar a ban because PSG are playing Barca.
But is that not because Trippier is English?
See, I tried to check that out, but it doesn't look like it.
It must be something related to that, because surely the English FA couldn't just randomly go, we choose you, you've broken a ban, and therefore we ban you.
Well, I don't know if it was because he's at some... Well, maybe he committed the crime
when he
was at Spurs. I don't know whether that's the dealio with it, but... That was kind of my Suarez played for Liverpool, now he plays for Atletico, and they're playing Chelsea, so why can't you ban him as well for something? Or Keita playing for Liverpool now, and he used to play for Leipzig, and they're playing Liverpool, so it's like, I mean, where's the limit? What point do you cross the line?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's to do with,
I don't think there should be any allowance for this, because it's open to abuse, where teams can go... Hey, we got him on a small technicality here. Let's give him a huge ban because it means he's not going to play against our guys in whatever competition.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I don't really know because I haven't been following the story, but I'd imagine if it's related to him, if it's because he's English, then I think, I mean, let's be fair, there's a fair level of accusations levelled at the English FA for being corrupt anyway.
Even if it is just because he's English, it's like, well, what's to stop them going, hey, Jadon Sancho, Dortmund playing one of our lot, let's give him a ban. It just really diminishes the value of English players abroad because all of a sudden the Football Association can just go dishing out fines.
What would make more sense if they said we're going to dock your wages for a little bit?
Yeah.
That would make more sense, or reduce, or you have to pay a fine, a hefty fine, say £1 million or something.
I think he has to pay a fine as well, but it's only I think 85 grand.
I was about to say, let's be fair, in football terms, it's going to be peanuts, isn't it? As in, 85 grand is a drop in the ocean for Trippier, probably. It's 90 minutes work. There we are. Yeah, I don't know, in all honesty. I do not know. Right, should we do highlight of the week?
Let's.
My highlight of the week was Aaron Rodgers... touchdown versus the Rams because he had the defence jumping. He threw a dummy and the Rams defence, they just didn't know what to do. I think they were so focused on his throwing game that they just kind of just were not expecting him to run, and he just completely took advantage of that. So yeah, that was my highlight of the week.
My highlight of the week was your shock of the week.
It was.
Maybe not in its pure essence of just the 13-yard run.
Mine was like a moment.
Mine was more about Andy Reid having the minerals to do what he did on that final drive. It was just insane. The Chiefs, for those who weren't aware, Mahomes went out with a concussion in the third quarter, and all of a sudden it was like, hang on, the Chiefs are only up by, it wasn't a lot. It might have been 12, somewhere like that.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah, so you were like, it's only 12, that's 2 touchdowns, and you're behind all of a sudden. So Mahomes goes out with a concussion, Chad Henne comes in. Chad Henne, by no stretch of the imagination, is a top-tier quarterback, which is kind of what the entirety of the Chiefs game is based on. Patrick Mahomes being a top-tier quarterback.
Yeah.
And he threw an interception. Chad Henne threw an interception on his first drive, and it was like, gosh, here we go, we're going to lose this. The defence... comes up big and stops Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, they actually did all right for change.
And then basically the Chiefs just needed to start milking the clock out with a couple of running plays to win the game. And well, they got I think 2 first downs.
Yeah,
which was they milked away about 6 minutes of clock. And on their final one, I think there's only about 4 minutes left. And they did a running play. The clock was running. Then they called a timeout because it's now 3rd and 14. Henne's been sacked. And, well, initially I thought, go for a running play, get the clock running at least, because Cleveland had used all their timeouts, so they'd have had to go the entire length of the field with a mostly run-heavy game. And try and win this thing with like only like a minute and a half left. It would have been. And Andy Reid, fair play to him, went, no, we're gonna call up a passing play.
We play.
And it wasn't a passing play. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Chad Henne scrambles 14 yards to try and get the first down. He was inches short, but the momentum was insane.
Literally, he went 4 inches. And you were like, no way. Like, that is absolutely... Like, you were just kind of sat there and you're like, what just happened? Like, what
At the very least,
happened?
I thought they were going to go for, like, just like a small run to milk a bit of clock and then punt it away. That was what every other coach probably would have done, because that's the normal thing to do. But they decided, catch him off guard, pretend to do a passing play, run it with Henne, almost got there.
Yeah, you thought you... Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, then on the 4th and inches, it was like... Okay, they're going to try and, draw the other team offside, get a 3-5 yards, and then they'll win the clock that game that way, because then they'll have been able to run out the clock before Cleveland can get the ball out. The game would have been won at that point. And then all of a sudden, they actually call the play. Chad Henne throws a pass, it gets caught, they're across the line, and they win the game. And it was just like, good gracious. Not only have they just put the game on Chad Henne's legs, but then onto his arm. It was a masterstroke.
Well, and they said we don't know any coach that would put so much, like, as in that's asking, like, considering, like, I can't remember how long they said, but they said it's been ages since Henne has started a game.
He's a 13-year career and he's never actually been a starter.
There we are. And like, this is like huge moment, and he's just done absolutely as in, if Mahomes had done the same thing, you'd expect it from Mahomes, obviously, but you'd still be kind of like clinical, really, as in, like, that's a good play.
A bold decision, yeah.
Yes, but, like, you kind of watch it and you're like, this is Henne. Like, what's he doing? And, like, you were kind of sat there as well, as in, particularly for on 4th down, like you said, and it's a good shout, actually. Like you said, the Browns are all about their running game. Just punt it long, and then they've got, like, say, I think it probably would have been about 2 minutes by that point.
Yeah, a minute and a half there.
A minute and a half to get the length of the field, which is... It's doable, but isn't you're having to rely on a big play.
Mayfield,
yeah, you're having to rely on a big play from your quarterback, which is not really the Browns' strongest facet, is it? They're all about their running game. But yeah, it was when, like you said, you were kind of expecting to try and catch them offside, and then they just snapped it, and you're like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And I think that caught out the Browns. I think everyone thought they were going to run down the clock there, call the timeout, get the punting team out and boot it. Just see if you can get that 5 yards for nothing.
Yeah, perhaps they just called...
Caught them cold,
perhaps they just called their bluff, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
Sorry, I've just seen your notes. Chad Henne for MVP. Disgusting behaviour. Perhaps we'll go back to the Mahomes concussion. It's interesting, because I didn't really know what the protocols were with the Mahomes concussion, so they do a load of the tests, don't they?
Yeah.
And they just keep testing him until they're kind of happy, that there's not any sort of neurological long-term potential effects. Yeah. But I guess what was interesting is, like they said, how there's the doctors, like, pitch side, obviously you will assess him, but then it's almost like they have people up in the stands to kind of look at how he is at the time. Yeah,
they're to look at everybody. If somebody's holding their head, or they're like, crouching awkwardly or something, it's like,
and
get them out.
I mean, I guess, so basically what happened was Mahomes got tackled. He was very wobbly, like very, very wobbly.
He collapsed like a newborn, like giraffe or something.
Yeah, he couldn't stand up, basically. He went off the pitch. They did like a mini assessment pitch side, and then he ran to the locker room. So he looks, at that point, he looked okay. I guess, I don't know about you, Jack, but I guess my concern would be that when they look at the footage of him getting up, they go,
and that's exactly
convinced.
why they said, get him in the locker room. We'll do the tests now. If he can come back out, he's allowed to come back out. And he wasn't allowed to come back out because something was clearly awry.
Awry, yeah.
But, I mean, the thing is, we don't know how long this concussion is going to last, if it is a concussion, even at that, and whether he'll come back for the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't think the Chiefs are going to win an AFC Championship game with Chad Henne.
No.
As important as Chad Henne was for us.
No.
Yesterday.
You just can't see it. I mean, it would be such a shame if, we were to go out without Mahomes, because, I appreciate that it's part of the sport and that's how it goes, but as in, you'd almost rather Mahomes be there and you just lose outright and you go, well, there we are, that is what it is. But when Mahomes isn't there, there's almost like there'll be an inkling of, but what if Mahomes had been playing,
Yeah. The thing is, he's not going to be like dizzy for the next few days. It's not going to be that. It's purely based on the safety of his brain, basically. Yeah, it's like, we're not putting him in for that reason. If teams do put players in like that, I think they get like $100,000 fine. But the thing is,
just worth it?
No, because I don't think any team would openly say we're going to do that. I wouldn't advocate for that. Apart from maybe the New Orleans Saints, I can't see many teams going, yeah, we'll do a dirty trick like that.
It undermines the whole system as well, doesn't it? Yeah. If teams are just going to go, we'll play him anyway and take the fine.
What if there's a little bit of that in the... they go, right, we'll put Mahomes in for this game, take a £150,000 fine, but there's going to be like another 14 days after this until the Super Bowl, so he's bound to be okay by then. And it's like, you wouldn't want them to do that. But at the same time,
it would mar the whole. It would undermine a lot of it, wouldn't it? I don't think they would do that. There we are. So yeah, the Chiefs game was intense, but in a bizarre way. It wouldn't have been in a way that we would have expected.
No, Chiefs were dominating up until Mahomes went out, and it was like,
weird.
Oh gosh, what's going on?
It was really weird. There we are. Should we talk about the Bills game?
Yeah, sure. The Ravens got held to 3 points.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
to be fair, they were a bit unlucky.
I'm baffled. Yes.
Both teams were 3-3 going into the third quarter, which was surprising. So neither offense was doing particularly well. But Lamar Jackson threw the first touchdown of the game, but it was to the wrong team. He threw it straight to one of the Bills players, and he ran 101 yards for a pick six. I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I feel like Lamar is the longer it goes on, the more and more I think is he a bit of a one-trick pony.
Yeah, you get found out in the league pretty quickly.
Yes.
It takes a year or two. If you're genuinely good, you survive. If you're not,
Mahomes,
it starts to show up.
Lamar Jackson. Yeah, exactly. It is one of those things. As in,
you
like
can't
you said,
just rely on being able to run because he hit with that interception. He threw that right into the defender's chest with three other guys, all defenders around the one target he was aiming for. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What were you thinking there? It's like
what are you doing? Yeah. Go on.
But yeah, it sort of raised the question. I thought, is he a serial choker in the playoffs? His first year, he was against the Chargers and lost 23-17 in the wildcard game. He got booed that game. The second time he was in the playoffs, he lost to the Titans. The Ravens were the 1 seed at that point, and they lost to the 6 seed Titans. And Lamar threw 2 interceptions. And this is his third year, and he got held to 3 points. But to be fair, he did leave a concussion partway through the game. But also threw a 101-yard pick six. So, you know what I mean? It was going downhill pretty quickly.
Even if he'd had a storming quarter, you'd still say it was only kind of just about balancing out what damage had been done previously. Yeah, so I think Bills deserved it, really. Which is, it's interesting, because against the Colts, you looked at the Bills and you thought they've left all the points they had on the board, whereas you looked at the Colts and you were kind of like, they could have scored a few more points there. They dropped it in the end zone. I think they went for a couple of odds, like 2-point conversions, and they went for they did some weird stuff. So the Bills get through there. They've now played against the Ravens, who have struggled.
Even though they did hold them up, like the Ravens, they didn't do particularly well on offense, and that was meant to be the strong point of their game. They didn't do a running play for... I think after it took almost 20 plays before they did a run. It was like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, you've put the Bills a serious contender to win the Super Bowl. I think by this point, it does kind of fall into that kind of sporting chasm of chaos where it's kind of anything can happen sort of vibe. Do you get what I mean?
They've only got to win 2 games, basically.
Yeah. The statistics would say probably not, based on, they've got to play the Chiefs next in the
reigning Super Bowl
championship game.
And then they've got to play either the greatest quarterback the game has ever had in Tom Brady. Or they've got to play the second best quarterback there's ever been in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. So, it's no... if they did win it, then they would deserve it, because they've had a pretty horrific route. But yeah, so I'm just putting it out there. I called the Bills to win. Like, in the first podcast, it probably would have been about 3 weeks ago now. I called it.
Yeah. Thing is, I could call a lot of things.
I still think it's a bit of a long shot.
I called the Packers to make it this far as well. It doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, all right. But no, I guess the thing that the Bills have got going for them is that out of the 4 teams left, they are very much... they're the worst team. I think we could say that, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The thing is, though, they could easily get the Super Bowl if Mahomes isn't playing.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing.
One game, basically all or nothing.
Well, look, if Mahomes isn't there, all of a sudden the Bills are favourites for that game, I think. Because as good as the Chiefs are, you just can't play without...
You can't win a championship game without a quarterback.
No. And that's no disrespect to Chad Henne, but... he's not a starting quarterback. So that was the one side of the divisional playoff games. Now we're moving to the other side, where we are talking about the Saints and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Tom Brady, at the 3rd time of asking this season, has beaten Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. And crucially, this is the time it mattered the most.
Yeah.
But this was Brees' last game. He said he was going to retire at the end of the season. So that's
he's retiring, is he? Okay.
Yeah, they announced that just before the game. But it was just a surprising game, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. Perhaps I was just being a bit naive, but I had the Saints down to win that game.
I did as well. Well, to be honest, I made all my predictions this year based on if there was any information from the regular season, I went with it. Which is why I thought the Saints were going to beat the Buccaneers, and it was why I thought the Packers were going to beat the Saints, which is why I thought the Packers would make it to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But now that it's all flipped on its head and the Buccaneers beat the Saints, I mean, the Buccaneers battered the Packers earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Perhaps they beat them, and then they play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl if they beat the Bills. That's the thing. The Chiefs have beaten the Bills this season, so on merit, they should make it into the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chiefs have also beaten the Buccaneers, who have beaten the Packers this season. So on logic, the Chiefs should win the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's interesting because if out of all of the teams that were left, the one team that I was like, oh, that's a bit of a stumbling block, would have been the Saints, I think. All of the other teams...
I worried about the Packers more, see?
Well, I think the reason I say this, I feel like the way the Saints play... Look, don't get me wrong, the Saints have got a good attack. But I feel like the way the Saints play is almost like the anti-Chiefs. As in, I feel like they would kind of just stop the Chiefs playing their own game. And as a result, I feel like... I don't know, let's put it this way. I feel like if the Packers and the Chiefs went into a slanging match between Mahomes and Rodgers, I think there's only one winner. In Mahomes, I'll be honest, I really do. And I feel the same for the Buccaneers. As good as Tom Brady is, I feel like if it got into a slanging match of who's going to throw bigger, who's going to score more touchdowns, who's going to make the biggest yards, I would back Mahomes, I really would. Obviously, again, this is assuming that Mahomes is fit. But yeah, so I was most concerned about the Saints, in all honesty, then probably followed by the Packers, because Aaron Rodgers is crazy good.
That's fair enough.
And they have got a good offensive line as well, so he's Not
But
only
what
have they
you're
got
saying-
cracking.
What you're saying is you still think the Bills are going to win this whole thing. So,
Yeah.
regardless of all that, you think
Yeah,
the
definitely.
biggest slanging match winner of all this is going to be the Bills.
Yeah, I wish people could see my face on this podcast right now because it's like the epitome of not being confident. There we are. So the other game was Packers-Rams.
Nothing really happened.
Yeah,
The
to be honest
Packers
with you.
just dominated.
Yeah, the Rams didn't really offer a lot. As in, Goff had his broken thumb. Was it a broken thumb he had?
It was, yeah. I mean, he
Yeah,
had surgery on it, but it wasn't healed.
No, I mean, I would have only had that game going towards the Packers anyway, but as in...
Bit of a boring one as well. Like, the Packers
Yeah.
just... the Rams couldn't get anything going. And
No.
to be fair, the Rams were pretty decent on defence against the Packers, but when you haven't got anything on the offensive side...
No. Well,
do,
as in...
it's like, well,
and
you're not
I
gonna win
think
again.
the Rams got close, didn't they? And then the Packers... Did they intercept? Possibly? I'm sure it was something like that. And I'm sure it was like a 10-point... Was that a different game? I can't remember now. But it was, you know... I think it was one of those ones where you were looking at it and going... The Rams' defence is doing okay, but their offence just did absolutely nothing. You're never going to win a game of American football if your offence isn't at least firing on part, you know? So, yeah, it went as expected, I guess. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, I only
Next
saw
one,
this in
go
a
on.
tweet today. Deshaun Watson, the quarterback of the Houston Texans, put a tweet out saying, well, because apparently there's a march being organised by, I think, it didn't specify, but I assume it's by Houston Texan fans for Deshaun Watson. I think it's almost like a support one, like, please stay.
Okay.
Don't leave us, because it's quite well publicised he wants to leave. Even ex-Texans players are getting in on it saying Deshaun Watson should go somewhere else because the Texans organisation will just ruin him the longer he's there. And he basically just put out a tweet saying, hey, stop the rally. We don't want COVID to spread. I think there's a bit of a cop-out of, I really want to leave. Please don't organise this thing. Don't make it any harder than it needs to be. So it was just a bit of an interesting one. And it did sort of bring up, where do you think he'll end up? We have spoken about it. Might have even spoken about it last week. But
Yeah.
I mean, he could go to a number of places. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this in particular. But, I mean, Miami was a potential landing spot for him. Because Tua Tagovailoa hasn't really hit the heights.
Been a bit he's been hit and miss, hasn't he?
Yeah, and they've got a few first-round picks to offer as well, so that could be an option. I mean, the Jets, they're starting afresh. Perhaps he wants to go there. Maybe even the Jaguars, they've got the number 1 overall pick. Do you pick the best college quarterback or a proven NFL star? I don't know. And then you've got the Patriots, possibly.
That would be interesting.
It would. I
If you
don't
went
know.
to the Patriots.
I mean, the Patriots probably are one of the worst teams for drafting players. They're just really good at getting people on the cheap to join the team, almost like the Patriot way. Everyone's going to take a cut price deal to make some sort of superstar squad, which is why they're always competitive. But now they haven't got Tom Brady, no one's really doing that. But in a sense, I don't think they'd be too opposed to the idea of saying, hey, have every single one of our picks this year and we'll have Deshaun Watson. Teams have done that in the past. They've said have them all because obviously after the first and the second round pick, the rest of them are, the chance of getting someone good is pretty low at all.
Yeah, it diminishes.
There's 7 rounds, but you're not really going to get anyone with a 7th round pick really usually. So perhaps they do that, but yeah, it's an interesting one where he ends up. I don't know if Deshaun Watson would even want to go there, but he doesn't actually have a say when it comes to trades.
No, that's true.
The team which owns you has the say. So who knows what happens?
Who knows? And on that note, who knows what's going to happen next week in the championship games? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm very much excited. I feel like these past couple of weeks, particularly talking about it on the podcast, but, just gotten into it a little bit more tension building, excitement building.
So the thing is, if Mahomes is fit, the Chiefs are making the Super Bowl. I have no doubts, even though people are.
I mean, no Bills. Oh yeah.
I'm just convinced it's going to be the Chiefs if Mahomes is playing. If he's not, then it's going to be the Bills, rather, unfortunately. And I'm pretty certain that. Well, I reckon Tom Brady will beat Aaron Rodgers. He's beaten him so many times throughout his career, and he absolutely clubbed him earlier in the season, and they're pretty hot right now. So But to be fair, they're playing in Lambeau, and it is meant to snow, and he's...
It's a lot of...
Tom Brady's played in New England for so long that he's used to the cold, so perhaps it'll be like a homecoming to him. But who knows?
He'll get even better. Oh no. There we are, right. Should we finish off with our stat of the week?
Let's.
I'll do mine first, because yours is an absolute cracker to finish off with.
I can't help it.
What can I say? I'm amazing. The NFC Championship game appearances since 1997. So, for those who don't follow the NFC Championship games, it's basically like the Super Bowl semi-final, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah, one side semi-final.
Yes. So, appearances in the NFC Championship games since 1997. Tom Brady won. So, bearing in mind, this is just purely for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the Patriots
play in the
are...
NFC, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the Patriots play in the AFC, so those don't count. Dallas Cowboys, 0. So in one season, Tom Brady has more appearances than the Dallas Cowboys since 1997. Which is, that's 24 years.
That's my life.
Yes, that's literally as long as me and Jack have been alive. And the years there you go, the years in the NFC since 1997... Dallas Cowboys 24, Tom Brady 1.
It's embarrassing, that.
That's a pretty damning statistic on the old Dallas Cowboys, but there we are. Right, do your statistic, because you read this to me yesterday. It's a good one.
If you add up all of the Premier League minutes played for Chelsea and divide by the goals scored for George Weah, Gonzalo Higuain, Fernando Torres, Samuel Eto'o, Andrei Shevchenko, and Timo Werner. So if you add all the minutes they've played and divide it by all the number of goals they've got, so that's minutes per goal now. The minutes per goal for all of those combined is 280 minutes. Nicholas Bentner...
So it's one goal every 280 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Nicholas Bentner's record at Arsenal is a rate of 1 goal for every 190 minutes. I mean, he scores a goal every 90 minutes more often than all of those guys combined have.
So what we're saying, on average, Nicholas Bentner is more prolific compared
all of
to
those players.
And on that note...
That's nuts, that.
That's a glorious statistic. Yes, there we are. So that is the end of episode 11 of the Down to the Wire podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you're listening on YouTube... like we said at the start, why not subscribe so you get all the notifications when we upload. We upload every Tuesday, and then we normally send a reminder out on Thursday. We are also on Spotify, so if you're listening on Spotify, why not follow the podcast? We are also on Apple Podcasts,
Yes.
Pocket Casts,
Mm-hmm.
Google Podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
Breaker.
Yeah.
That's all of them. I'm pretty sure.
And YouTube. I don't know if you've mentioned YouTube.
I said YouTube at the start.
Oh, did you?
Subscribe,
Fair
didn't I?
True.
Gosh. There we are. Right. Thank you very much for listening, and me and Jack will speak to you next week.